Let's talk about Braid, Jonathan Blow's 2008 foray into conceptual modern game critique, wrapped in a strong, artsy philosophical thesis. It was a perfect storm, a platform for weird little games, and the debut of a weird little game that made you feel like you should be wearing a turtleneck and sipping espressos. There's so much to unpack for such a small and relatively short game. It's one of those pieces of media that's easy to get into but surprisingly complex when it comes to deciphering its themes, messages, and illusions. This game is what happens when a philosophy major touches a time machine and forgets how to have fun. In a good way. Braid fascinated critics, received awards, and was widely covered. It also marked a turning point in indie game history, arriving just as digital storefronts like Xbox Live Arcade were becoming fertile ground for creative experimentation. It's one of those titles that tricks you into thinking you're just solving puzzles, and then, halfway through, you realize you've been participating in a metaphorical therapy session with a man in a vest. Tim, our protagonist, is on a quest to save a princess. Groundbreaking, I know, but that's where the cliches end. From this premise begins a narrative that tightly intertwines gameplay and plot in a vivid, compelling way. We're invited into a fairy tale-like world, where clues are dropped at every turn, and the further you go, the deeper the well of implication becomes. Braid hits you with what if the princess wasn't in another castle, but was actually your own emotional immaturity. The moment you take control, you realize something's off. The writing is poetic and brooding, the world melancholic. This is less Super Mario and more super existential crisis. The narrative unspools slowly, dropping hints of regret, longing, and perhaps a few therapy bills left unpaid. The ambiguity forces players to reflect whether they want to or not. And by the time you reach the true ending, you're questioning your actions, the character's motives, and possibly your own life choices. Without giving away too much, it's fair to say that Braid is not shy about its influences and inspirations, likely because it manages to outdo them in cleverness and uniqueness. Imagine aforementioned Mario realizing the princess doesn't want to be saved and then reading Camus instead of jumping again. The game's ambiguous ending offers you just enough to provoke thought without spoon-feeding conclusions. Childhood, upbringing, humanity's pursuit of goals, and the consequences of reaching them are all called into question here. The idea of turning back time or undoing our actions, Braid gives you plenty to think about, even as the speculation remains open-ended. This is the game's crowning jewel. What sets it apart is how seamlessly it complements the visual language and supports a relaxed but engaging puzzle-solving experience. Every puzzle is like being handed a Rubik's Cube, but the colors are moral choices and existential dread. Braid's core mechanic, rewinding time, isn't just clever. It manages to stay unique and doesn't overstay its welcome. Every step forward tells you that this ability that you treated as a crutch will now let you do precise tricks. And the game expects you to. Every level introduces a new wrinkle to the formula. One moment you're reversing time to catch a key, next you're moving forward while the time moves backwards. It's like if Prince of Persia went to art school and started using phrases like temporal duality. What's impressive is how the game never cheats. Puzzles don't rely on tedious trial and error or brute force interactions with every clickable object. Instead, Braid presents problems with clearly defined rules and constraints, allowing for elegant, satisfying solutions. The movement is fluid and responsive, the animations handcrafted and evocative, like interacting with a cartoon produced by a world-class studio. Imagine being taught to treat your enemies like assets rather than immediately dispatching them, or thinking several steps ahead of ways to combine all possible actions and assets to your advantage. You always have the tools, the information, and the mechanics. You're just not as smart as you thought you were. And when you finally solve a level, it feels less like a victory and more like you just figured out how to walk upright. Braid doesn't make you feel like a genius, it makes you feel like a very patient idiot, which is honestly more rewarding. David Hellman's art direction transforms the game into a living painting. The backgrounds pulse with dreamlike energy. Everything looks like it was painting during a fever dream at an impressionist retreat. Imagine if Bob Ross had a breakdown while painting happy little trees and started mumbling about entropy. That's the vibe. These visuals serve as a portfolio, a statement about the potential of games to transcend the boundaries of the medium. Jonathan Blow, with the help from concept artist Mike Carrero, developed a modular approach to level design that was implemented with great success. Then, Blow and Hellman iterated several times before settling on a perfect visual style to complement the music and atmosphere. Tim wears a suit the whole time, which is how you know this game takes itself very seriously. All of the game's assets are available online. Every animation frame, character design, and level element offering a showcase of care, attention, and craftsmanship. It's whimsical, but slightly haunted, like a picture book that was banned for making children cry. You'd half expect Tim to turn around and say something like, "You ever think your memories are just lies you told yourself?" So the impressionist-like landscapes wasn't just a stylistic choice. It served to emotionally soften the harsh philosophical undercurrent of the narrative. If Monet painted a video game level, then got frustrated and added a platforming section out of spite, it might look like this. The soundtrack is astonishing. When working on a tight budget, devs are often forced to use licensed tracks, which can result in exposing hidden gems to a new audience. Licensed tracks that somehow feel like they were made specifically for Braid. These aren't your average puzzle game jingles. It's cello and harp core. This music makes you rethink your entire childhood while waiting for a platform to reset. If Enya composed music after a breakup with time itself, it would sound like this. Just as Hotline Miami introduced legendary tracks curated by John Surdstrom and Dennis Wedding, Braid went even further. Some of the compositions even inspired visual design elements within the game. Because players spend time contemplating puzzles, the music had to be both lengthy and atmospheric, unique to each chapter. It's like yoga for your ears, except you're trying to undo your own timeline of sins instead of improving core strength. The soundtrack's ability to play in reverse just as elegantly as forward mirrors the game's mechanics, reinforcing the notion that every layer of the game speaks the same philosophical language. It plays backwards just as smoothly as forwards, as if the game is judging you for trying to cheese the level but rewarding you with the vibes anyway. You'll wonder if the composer made it this way just to flex. Perhaps the most debated aspect of Braid is whether it has a message at all. What's Braid about? Some say it's about love and regret, others claim it's about the atomic bomb, or addiction to control, or even the dangers of obsessive perfectionism. Many see it as a manifesto, one that criticizes the game industry of its time and unfortunately still resonates strongly today. Others interpret an even broader debate over whether games are dangerous escapism or powerful transformative storytelling tools. Personally, I believe it to be a metaphor for men's struggle for knowledge and scientific progress that always comes with its caveats. The beauty of being human lies in how irrational and contradictory our existence can be. It's like playing a diary you didn't write, but somehow still feel guilty about. In that sense, the ongoing conversation around Braid reflects its essence perfectly. It's like getting a therapy session from a puzzle box, except the puzzle box might also be judging you and your neighbor. More than anything, Braid challenges the player to confront their relationship with control over time, over others, and over meaning itself, and it invites us to admit that some consequences can never be undone. It's less of a message and more of a psychological Rorschach test with pixel art. You'll project onto it whatever you're personally haunted by. And the best part? The game never corrects you. People debate whether Braid is about heartbreak or nuclear devastation, which is a fun emotional scale to live on. Let's talk about Blow. Brilliant developer? Absolutely. Warm and fuzzy personality? Not exactly. Blow has never been afraid to call out the industry, the press, or on occasion human intelligence itself. He's said things like, "A lot of games are stupid because the people making them don't think deeply." Which, fair or not, is a bold stance when the Witness's secret ending made some players go outside just to scream at clouds. So much for a deep artsy statement. There's also a kind of a mythic narrative forming around Blow himself, that of a tortured genius so far ahead of his time even he can't stand the rest of us. Blow is like a human puzzle box, fascinating, complex, and sometimes you just want to throw him across the room. But like Braid itself, he's more complicated than a quick summary can capture. He's thoughtful, meticulous, and occasionally preachy. Basically, the game design version of a crossword puzzle that insults you for taking too long to solve it. But here's the thing, art and artists do not always have to walk hand in hand. Great works often come from difficult people. Braid remains a masterpiece, delicate in storytelling and player respect and in emotional resonance. If we cancelled every genius with a weird opinion, we'd have no inventions, no literature, and definitely no good puzzle games. So maybe the first thing to do is this: let the game be the game. Don't look for the man in every brushstroke or puzzle piece. Braid is worth celebrating not because its creator is flawless, but because the game is. In the end, the art stands, and it stands tall. You can separate the art from the artist, or you can just pretend the game made itself through sheer indie willpower. Braid is a classic. It helped define the modern indie game movement. It's clever, soulful, and challenging in a way that respects your time, your intelligence, and your ability to overthink everything. The Anniversary Edition has remastered art, smoother animations, and developer commentary that's like a TED Talk on digital melancholy. For $20, you get a timeless masterpiece that refined an entire genre, and also made several players question their life decisions in the middle of a puzzle about a cloud. It costs less than going out for dinner and lasts longer than the evening you ruined for her trying to explain the endings. If you haven't played Braid, you're missing one of the only games where rewinding time feels less like a mechanic and more like a desperate cry for emotional do-overs. Skip 2 coffees, grab Braid instead. One gives you jitters, the other gives you an existential crisis. The choice is obvious.